monthly for, I don't know, maybe about 18 months now, quite a while. And we have set these up because we have an ambition for our team, for the Lancaster West State, and also for the wider Kensington and Chelsea Council, to become net zero carbon by 2030, along with a range of other sustainability objectives. I know lots of people in this call and lots of people that tend to watch us back are either working in areas that are related to this or have interests about this, or people that are watching it back have an interest in lots of different areas. So I think these sessions, hopefully people find them useful as a way of giving an introduction to various different topics to do with sustainability, and also just to facilitate a little bit of discussion around these things, get people thinking in different ways and like working together a little bit more on some of this stuff. So today, Joe has kindly joined us to talk about Refill and the Refill kind of campaign. So that is all around kind of reducing plastic waste and moving from kind of the traditional like single-use plastic bottles to refillables, and have been doing lots of great work looking at like water fountains, lots of campaigns around this area. So it should be a really interesting session. We've got about, I think, 20 minutes, half an hour presentation, and then should have lots of time at the end for discussion and any questions. So I will stop talking and stop sharing this, and Joe, I will hand over to you. Hopefully you'll be all okay to share slides, but we've got them if there are any issues on that front.
Just bear with me a sec while I get the slides up. Can you guys see those? Is that working?
I can't yet, no.
Try again. How about now?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Brilliant. I can't see all your, there we go, I can see you as well now. So thank you so much. It's great to be here and have the opportunity to talk to you guys a little bit more about our work. So my name is Jo, and I head up the campaigns team at an organisation called City to Sea. So we're an environmental not-for-profit, and we run campaigns to prevent plastic pollution at source. And our campaigns focus predominantly on tackling the most polluting single-use plastic items. So these are the things that are washing up on our beaches and found in our rivers time and time again. And we're trying to find solutions to stop them ending up there. So we're not cleaning beaches, but we're kind of tackling the problem further upstream. To find ways to eliminate them from our waste stream, and particularly we look a lot at reuse through all of our campaigning work. And across our campaigns, we work on things like at food to go, so looking a lot, as Hannah said, at packaging, so things like water bottles, coffee cups, some of the other really polluting items, but also things that are flushed down our toilets. So flushed plastics, you might be surprised to know, makes up about 6% of all the marine litter that's found on our beaches. So it's a really big area for us to work with as well. And across our campaigns, we do everything from education, so working with young people, working with schools to introduce these topics and to really connect people to solutions. And we also work on the other side with businesses. And we believe that to truly create systemic change, you need to have that balance of creating awareness of the problem, letting people know what the problem is and what the solutions are, but you also have to create the infrastructure. So a lot of our work is around making things like reusables more accessible for people, making them more affordable, and making sure that people can actually access them as they go about their day-to-day life, because we know we're not going to change behaviour if it's really difficult and really expensive to do that. So all of our work is designed then to actually create that long-lasting behaviour change at the end of the cycle as well. So yeah, as I said, city to sea, we're not out there cleaning beaches, although that's a really important part of plastic campaigning, is connecting people to those everyday items that are ending up on our beaches. We tend to look upstream at the solutions to stop things ending up there. And today I'm going to talk mainly about single-use plastic. So plastics on their own are not necessarily a bad thing, which is often a surprising thing to hear a plastics campaigner say. But you know, plastics on their own aren't the problem. A lot of plastics used in medical and you know have a multitude of ranges from phones to computers. You know, they touch our lives in every single part of our day. But it's actually single-use plastics that are the problem. And they actually now make up around half of all marine pollution found on our beaches. So these are things that we use once and just throw away. And, you know, they've only actually been around as a problem for the last kind of 30 or 40 years, and only really in the last 10 years that we've just seen this rapid increase towards single-use disposable culture. So across the globe now, we produce a slightly terrifying 300 million tonnes of plastic every year, and half of this is single use. So the scale of the problem is just, you know, mind-blowing when you really think about all of the things that we're using that we didn't even need 30 or 40 years ago, and that's making up half of all the plastic that's out there in the world. And unfortunately, production is forecast to double over the next 20 years and almost quadruple by 2050. And a big part of this is down to the success of the climate movement. You know, the fossil fuel industry knows that its days are limited, its days are numbered. So it's really, really heavily investing at the moment in plastic production. We're starting to see that big shift and big investment in global production to increase the market and to keep selling us more plastic that we know that we don't need and we know that we don't want. So you know, there's a lot of work to be done to really push for the halting of production. And then just to give you a little bit of an idea of the scale of what's then happening with this plastic, a lot of reports have shown that actually only about 9% of plastic waste, of all the plastic waste that we create, has ever actually been recycled. And I think that's, you know, something that's really shocking for a lot of people in the UK. We work really hard to put our everyday plastics in the bin, and we assume that these are getting recycled. And in the UK, we're very proud of our like 50% recycling statistics that we bandy around. But actually, you know, unfortunately, somewhere only between about 5 and 9% of household plastics actually end up getting recycled. Greenpeace have just done a really exciting project, which some of you might have heard of over the last couple of weeks, the Big Plastic Count. Which has collected the biggest citizen science data set of household plastic, and they're going to be analysing that to see what we're throwing away and where it's actually going. Because just because something goes into your recycling, it doesn't mean it then gets recycled. And a big part of this problem is to do with exports. So in the UK, we're actually exporting most of our waste. Somewhere between 1/3 and 2/3. It's starting to decrease now because a lot of countries that we export our waste to, historically places like China, Indonesia, and across Asia, have now banned this and are sending our waste back, which is, you know, it's a huge problem that creates scenes like this in countries that don't have the infrastructure to manage or to process our waste. And the consequences are not just on the environment, but they're, you know, disproportionately being felt by communities on low incomes, communities of colour, and communities with fewer political, economic and legal means to oppose this. And they're feeling that the health impact of that as well. And these sites are often burnt, and the waste is ending up into our oceans. So there's a big disconnect between what we use here, the everyday plastics that we use every day, that we think are being recycled, and then what's actually happening to them as they go out into the world. So I guess I know it's quite a big topic and it's quite depressing, but I just kind of wanted to paint that picture with the context of the work that we've been doing here in the UK. And then just to kind of snapshot the most polluting single-use plastic items. As I said, about half of marine pollution is made up of single-use plastic. And of these, a huge proportion of them come from on-the-go food and drinks, and they're just completely dominating global litter. So the most polluting are still plastic bags, plastic bottles, food containers and cutlery, and food wrappers, bottle lids. The things that we're, taking out and taking with us every day are the ones that are ending up in our oceans. So at City2Sea, we decided we needed to do something about this. And this is where the Refill campaign came in. So Refill is a campaign to help people live with less waste. It started life back in Bristol in 2015 with the simple goal of connecting people to free drinking water. So we knew back then in 2015, bottled water or plastic bottles were the most polluting item that were washing up on beaches, and we were seeing across the streets here, actually, across the streets and in the River Avon. And we decided we wanted to find out what we could possibly do about this problem. So we did a whole load of research into kind of what was going on with consumers, and we found out that the main reasons people were buying bottled water was because they didn't know where they could fill up their bottle. There was just a complete lack of accessibility back then of free drinking water. I remember myself, I used to commute from Brighton back then up to London and hide in pub toilets to fill up my bottle. It just wasn't something that you could do, which is pretty crazy when you think about it now. So we designed the Refill campaign to overcome this problem. We launched a location-based app, so you can use the app to find anywhere to get free drinking water, whether this is a business that lets you fill up for free or a public drinking water fountain. And the other thing that we did was launch a window sticker, which enables you to feel comfortable to know that you can come in and fill your bottle up. Because the other thing that we found as we carried out our research is that us Brits are far too polite, and we do not like to come in and ask for a free refill unless we're making a purchase. So using that kind of insight to the barriers for people accessing free drinking water, we launched Refill back in 2015. Hopefully you've seen this sticker around the country. It's now kind of along pretty much all of the high streets. We've worked with most of the high street chains to introduce free drinking water, and also with thousands of independent cafes as well. And we also have our Refill app, which is completely free to download. And this now connects people to more than 300,000 places that you can access free drinking water or other packaging-free shopping options. So in 2020, whenever it was in the pandemic, we expanded beyond drinking water, and it's now the world's first app to connect you to places that you can refill and reuse. So you can use the free app to find discounts on coffee in your reusable cup. You can find zero waste shops. You can find cafes that offer takeaway lunch in your own container. And we're also just starting to do some development work to connect people to reusable container schemes. So places that you can borrow a reusable coffee cup and drop it off somewhere else. And that's something we're starting to see a lot of expansion with at the moment. So as I said, Refill has grown massively. We're now working with pretty much all of the high street chains, a number of really big brands that do online refill and reuse delivery. And we've also expanded globally into 7 different countries around the world, and it's starting to grow even faster now, which is really, really exciting. And there are also about 40,000 independent businesses, and that's everything from zero waste shops to coffee shops to cafes and businesses. And we do a whole lot of work to support those businesses as well in transitioning from single-use packaging to reusable packaging, giving quite a lot of advice and information around the best kind of packaging options as well for takeaway. Refill in London. So London has been kind of one of our main areas after we expanded outside of Bristol. And I know we're working with you guys in the Lancaster refill scheme to grow and really power this across London. And we now have 36 locally led refill schemes in London. So these are run by local authorities, by community groups, and by kind of everyday activists that want to make a difference and power change in their community. And there are now 4,699 refill stations, which has grown massively since we launched in about 2018 across London. And we're currently working with the Mayor of London, or the Greater London Authority, on a big behaviour change campaign across the city to connect people to these drinking water fountains and refill stations, because we know the pandemic has had a big impact on consumer behaviours, and we know that the public, kind of everyone got a bit nervous. We all sort of changed our habits, unsurprisingly. Drinking water fountains went a bit out of favour, and a lot of the London fountains were also closed. So we're kind of rebuilding those habits, driving people to refill and reuse across the city. And we would really welcome you all to get involved in that campaign as well by supporting on social media, using the hashtag #RefillLondon, and directing people across the city to find the app, whether they're London residents or tourists visiting the city. We really want to make sure that they can find free drinking water. So all of this work has had an amazing impact. As I said, we've got kind of almost 400,000 people using the Refill app now. We're live in 700 countries, or sorry, 7 countries, not quite 700 yet, but we have about 400 locally led refill schemes across the UK. And these are, this kind of grassroots system that we have is what's really enabled Refill to grow. It's the local volunteers in towns and villages across the country that have mapped refill stations, have connected their local community, and are doing some really, really exciting projects that has really made Refill the campaign that it is today. And as a result of all of this, we're now estimated to prevent about 100 million pieces of plastic every single year. Which is, really phenomenal and is growing the more that the campaign expands as well. And I think the thing I'm the most proud of with Refill, we set out to change behaviour and to help people find free drinking water and avoid using plastic water bottles. And we know that about 67% of people are more likely to refill and reuse on the go as a result of the campaign. And the number of people that normally drink tap water on the go has gone up from 1 in 5 to 1 in every 2 people since the campaign started. So we've really seen that tipping point and the changing of behaviours over the last 5 years since Refill has grown with it. And I think that's something that we can all be proud of for everyone that's been involved in the campaign. So big thanks to all of your hard work as well. And we've also just recently done some research to better understand how people are using the app. we're doing a lot of development to introduce tips, plastic-free living, and really help people reduce the amount of plastic that they use. And around 75% of app users have said that it significantly helped them reduce plastic. So if you're looking to live with less plastic and you haven't downloaded the app, it's completely free, and you'll be able to find lots of useful new information and tips on there soon. And the last thing I'm going to talk to you guys about today is to introduce you to World Refill Day. So this is our global public awareness campaign to help people live with less waste. And this is kind of the pinnacle of our refill campaign. We started it in the UK a few years ago as National Refill Day. And last year, in the wake of the pandemic, we decided to go global because we knew that the pandemic had really impacted behaviour when it came to single-use plastic. And we'd seen businesses banning reusables. Lots of the coffee chains had stopped accepting reusable coffee cups, and we knew we had to do something about it. So last year, we took the campaign global, and it was a huge success. Reaching about 168 million people around the world with a huge amount of media coverage, and it really got the conversation back out there. We wanted to make sure that people were still talking about plastic pollution, but that they also knew that reuse was the solution. So for us, World Refill Day has always been about changing the narrative, creating this big moment that that everyone can get behind and get everyone talking about reuse and refill, because our goal is to kind of move us beyond our single-use culture and towards a circular future with reuse at the centre. We also really want to help people. You know, we know that the public still care about plastic pollution, but often don't know what to do about it. And this is where we can help. So using World Refill Day to connect people to the app, to encourage them to find out what they can refill and reuse near them. And it also gives us an opportunity to celebrate the refill heroes around the world. So this year, a big part of our campaign ask is going to be calling out the big polluters, because we know that we as individuals can definitely make a difference. And by switching from single-use plastic towards reusables, it really does add up. But there's only so much we can do unless the big brands make it easy for us. We need them to make sure that it's possible to access packaging-free options or reusable options. So this year we're teaming up with some of the big NGOs like Greenpeace, Break Free from Plastic, and we're all collaborating on a big open letter calling out the big polluters. So these are the brands that are identified in the global brand audit. And we're writing them an open letter, and we're going to be launching a social media campaign as well on June the 16th to call them out, which we would love for you to get behind. So if your organisation would like to sign the open letter, we'll be sharing the slides afterwards. And also I can share the campaign toolkit as well, which has everything that you need to get involved. The other way you can support World Refill Day is to get involved on social media on the day. Ultimately, we're trying to normalise reuse and refill. So we want to flood social with pictures of people with their reusables, carrying their reusable coffee cup, filling up in a zero waste shop, or even just filling up their water bottle at a fountain or at home. And this will help us remind other people and really build these social norms for reuse and refill. So please join us on June the 16th, share your pictures and get involved on social media. These are a few pictures from last year. So we had over 10,000 people all around the world who got involved on social, which had an amazing impact and really enabled us to remind people, particularly in the wake of the pandemic, that it was possible to avoid single-use plastic and highlight some of the ways that people could do this. Amazing. I'm going to stop talking about our campaigns now and give you a very quick kind of tip list of things if you want to do more to reduce single-use plastic. Here's kind of where I would recommend starting. First of all, downloading the app if you haven't already. And another really good way to start is by doing a plastic audit. So having a look at the plastic that you use every day, whether it's at home, whether it's on your way to work, and just kind of thinking about which of those you might be able to switch out. Maybe you're using loads and loads of milk every week. Maybe you could switch to a milkman. Or if your kind of biggest plastic income is from veg, switching to something like a veg box or shopping at a greengrocer. So I think starting with a bit of an audit, analysing and seeing what you're using, and then thinking if there's just one or two things that you could switch out. And I definitely recommend starting small and building up. It's very tempting to want to just cut it all out together, but rebuilding and building new habits takes time. So be kind to yourself. Start with one or two, maybe a month, and see where you end up. And wherever possible, shop locally. Supporting local businesses and looking for greengrocers or butchers is a really great way to support your local economy and your local community, whilst also using less plastic. Use your voice. As a campaigning organisation, one of the best things you can do is to support us, to support our work, and to add your voice to petitions and to campaigns to let policymakers and big businesses know that their customers really care about this. So please do check out our website or sign up to Plastic Free Journal, which is our newsletter, for updates on all of our campaigns. Also on our site, we have a section on plastic-free living. So here we've got pretty much tips and tricks on everything from the bathroom to cleaning or to your garden. And it's a really great place to get started. And a lot of these tips as well, are really perfect for looking for plastic-free living ideas without breaking the bank. So it's something that we want to make as accessible as possible. So yeah, definitely recommend checking that out if you're just getting started. And then finally, just a few other things you can do. Consider joining your local refill community scheme. As I said, there are plenty across London who often have action days and lots of ways to get involved there. Volunteering your time and skills with them. And please do check out our work at City to Sea, sign up for our newsletter, and if you'd like to do more, donations are always welcome, and every single penny that is donated goes towards powering our campaigns, just like Refill. And that's everything from me. I hope that was useful. It's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of Refill and our work, so I will open the floor to questions.
Thanks a lot for that, Jo. That was really interesting. And it's really great to hear as well, I think, about the impact that the Refill campaign has done so far. So yeah, some really positive stories in there as well, which is good. Because I feel on a subject like this, it can be quite easy to dwell on like some of the bad things that are happening. So it's really great to hear about some of the positives as well. I can see we've already got a question in the chat before I go over to any hands up, and this was from Leslie asking around the app, so the Refill app. So there was one that I think is just the like refill fountains and where they are, and yeah, do you have tips?
Yeah, so if you search for
the right app, or is there another?
Yeah, if you search for the Refill app, you'll see the Refill droplet, and that's our app, which connects you to all the water refill stations, fountains, and then discounts on things like coffee or finding zero waste shops. So we've tried to bring together all the different ways that you can live with less plastic and put them into one app.
Thank you, Jo. And I can, sorry, my laptop has been awfully slow, but I can see we've got a hand up, and Lloyd, do you want to ask your question or comment?
Hi, thank you for organizing, Hannah, and thank you, Joe, for your excellent presentation. I'm one of these people that I actually lose sleep at night thinking about plastic, and I'm not going to say my age because I need a few martinis in me for that, but I do recall a day and age where you could buy products that came in glass, and I'm a huge fan of bottled water. I'm sorry, probably not the right forum to disclose that, but I love Pellegrino, I love Evian, and I drink them regularly, but I do feel guilty because they come in plastic bottles now. Um, is there any kind of campaign going on to target manufacturers and ask them to return to glass, or ask them to return to, or maybe try cardboard or something that is a little bit more sustainable? And before, I have another question that's kind of unrelated, and that is about, do you remember that video with that turtle, the sea turtle, with the straw stuck up its nose, and the marine biologists pull it out, and you can you know, you don't think of turtles as having like emotion, but you could actually see how much this turtle was suffering, and it had such a huge ripple effect because nary is the plastic straw these days. Everything is done with paper straws. So I don't drink coffee often, but every once in a while I have like a caramel frappuccino, and it comes with a paper straw, but in a plastic cup. And I'm just like, again, can we look at having these things in plastic, I mean, in paper containers, instead of having all of these things in plastic containers? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. So I'll start with the first one on water. And yes, that's actually one of the main asks that we have for these big corporate polluters, which, you know, definitely includes a lot of the bottled water manufacturers. And you're completely right. All of those things used to be delivered in reusable glass bottles. I think the important distinction to make, though, is that we want them to introduce reuse systems for their packaging. So not that people buy a glass bottle, take it home, put it in their recycling, because again, that's single use, and whilst glass has a higher recycling rate, what we want to do is try and keep our resources and keep packaging within the system. So Coca-Cola, for example, used to sell most of its products in reusable glass bottles. People would drink them and they would return the bottles. They would get reused and put back into the system. And that's really what we're pushing a lot of the beverage suppliers to do, and that's our big ask for brands like Coca-Cola, is to introduce reuse. So it would be the same ask for the water brands. You know, it's completely possible, and the other way, particularly for some of the beverage brands and water providers, is to have kind of taps that they have within retailers, so you could take your own bottle and just fill it up with Evian from a fountain. So there's a lot of systems that are out there, and that's definitely what we're pushing the brands to do. So as a customer, I would definitely say, if that's something that's important to you, contact them. If you're, you know, you've been buying their products for a long time, let them know it's something that you really care about. And then very quickly on your second point around packaging and switching from plastic to paper, I think the main thing to kind of get across is it's not just plastic that's the problem, it's single use. So every material has its challenges. You know, paper comes from trees which have been cut down, or it's from paper that's been recovered and recycled, but it has a really intensive process that goes behind that. For the paper to be manufactured, it's then shipped all around the world just for us to have one cup of coffee and throw away, and then that cup's got to be collected, recycled, and we know it's just not happening. So what we're trying to push for, and where we need to move our society, is from single use towards reuse systems, to keep things, to keep packaging, to keep containers within the cycle, so nothing is lost and our resources are valued. So what we're pushing for on that side is for coffee shops to introduce reusable cups. So either bring your own, which obviously you can do, and a lot of businesses will give you a discount, but otherwise to introduce deposit return schemes. So you can get your coffee in a reusable cup, you can drink it, you can drop that cup off somewhere, it will get cleaned and returned into the system, and that's where we would like to see things move towards.
Thank you, Jo. I think that's definitely something I will be more mindful of. Thank you for that change in perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of questions actually, Jo, and then if anybody else has any, then feel free to put your hands up. One thing that I wanted to ask about, so I know in like some different countries they have schemes where, say if you went and bought like a drink in a plastic bottle at a shop, you can then, once you finish that, bring it back to the shop and get like a small bit of the money back for those plastic bottles. How, I guess one question would be, how beneficial do you think that would be if we looked, if that was something to kind of happen on any sort of scale in the UK, and how kind of likely do you think it is that either, I guess we'd have a government kind of mandated thing to go in that direction, or that I guess individual like shops or whatever kind of companies would take the initiative to do that?
So it's a really good question, and you're talking about a deposit return system. So bottles or beverages containers have a value, and it means they're then collected and returned. So on bottles you'll get a 10p deposit back for that bottle, and yes, they're really widely used in countries like Germany, where they have a massively high recycling rate because those systems are in place. It's something that's been talked about in the UK for many years and has been delayed, but we are due to have a deposit return system launching in, I think it's been pushed back to 2024 now, but I can check the timings on that. So it will happen, and it's a massively powerful tool for driving uptake of recycling. Again, though, it's another way of kind of exacerbating the single-use model, that you can use something, throw it away, whilst obviously it's much better that item, instead of getting thrown in the bin or into our environment, is collected. So it's a really important part of the transition, but again, we would like to see that being balanced with reuse systems as well.
Yeah, thank you. Good answer. And then one other thing that I wanted to ask, so I think one thing that I was going to ask, but that you covered really well, is kind of what are some of the key things that we could do, which I think on an individual scale, you've given everybody lots of things to think about. So one thing we've done kind of as a team within the council as well is we've installed a like water drinking fountain on Lancaster West, where some of us in this call work. So, and added that to the like refill app as well, so people can see that and refill there. What are some of the other key things that you think, as either a local authority as a whole or teams kind of within it? I know there's a little range of people in this call that we could be thinking about doing that will kind of help us move towards where we should be.
Yeah, that's a great question, and something really simple that we introduced in our office a few years ago, and that we've worked with other local authorities and employers to introduce, is to have a reusable container collection point just by the front door. So if anyone's popping out for a coffee or popping out for lunch, there's a container that they can grab and take with them to the local coffee shop. And we found that's a really great way of driving uptake and helping people, because we know how easy it is to forget your reusable cup, you've left it in the car, you haven't got a Tupperware with you. So I think that's a really simple thing that you can introduce within your office to help everyone in the team remember. And then I think just other things like, maybe introducing clothing swaps, or doing a plastics audit together as a way of getting the whole team involved. It's something else that we did to really understand what items we're using and support each other in finding ways of reducing as well.
Yeah, that plastic audit sounds like that would be really helpful, because I think it's something that you can kind of look at as a whole and think, kind of when you notice it, as and when you kind of think, oh, here's an area that we can improve on. But I think actually kind of taking that step back and being like, right, what are we using and how can we make changes to this, I think would be really helpful. So it's definitely something that we can take away.
And obviously, as a local authority, you know, thinking about where you can influence, particularly around things like events and licensing, are there you know, advice that you can put in around businesses, making sure that there is information around use of single-use plastic, making sure you're introducing recycling systems, and also being really clear around single use. I think that's something we're starting to see a big shift in the UK, particularly for events, is and also for takeaway businesses, shifting from single-use plastic towards things like compostable bioplastics, which, whilst they sound brilliant, are actually hugely problematic. And just because something says it's compostable, it doesn't mean it will compost in the way that we think it will. Most compostables and things like vegware, you know, have to be collected separately. They need to go in an industrial composter for around 8 to 12 weeks at crazy high temperatures, and we only have about 15 of these within the UK. So actually, if compostables are ending up in your recycling bin, then they could actually be contaminating your recycling, and they don't break down either in the natural environment. So always just thinking about single use being the problem, and trying to find ways to switch from single use to reuse systems, and particularly being cautious about things like bioplastics.
Yeah, I think that's a really helpful distinction. That's a conversation that I've had with a lot of people, where you kind of assume that that is a step in the right direction, but not a lot of people will know that, yeah, that can actually cause kind of bigger issues if you're then leading to contamination and assuming things are gonna like biodegrade in the way that you'd expect them to pretty quickly, but that isn't actually the case. I think that's very helpful. Do we have any other questions, either in the chat or with anybody with their hands up? I think that's been, yeah, lots of ground with that, and I think, yeah, really helpful kind of summary of what's, the sort of work that you've been doing, Joe, but I think particularly the stuff that all of us can take away and do, I think has been particularly helpful. Is it the 16th of June that we've got World Refill Day?
Exactly. So June the 16th is World Refill Day. Please do check out the website, download the app, and we'd love for you all to get involved and support.
We'll definitely make sure that we put some stuff on our social media for our team as well, and do a little push around that. So I think definitely good to get the word out.
Fantastic. And then just as an individual, I definitely recommend signing up to Plastic Free Journal, our monthly newsletter, and that has all of our updates on our campaigns and tips for living with less plastic. And we often have kind of exclusive discounts and giveaways from some brilliant brands on there as well. So definitely worth checking out.
Great, thank you. I'll definitely sign up now.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for your time, and I'll share the slides, but please do reach out. You're welcome to contact me at City2C if you have any questions at all.
Thanks a lot, Joe. Appreciate your time, and thanks everybody for joining. We've recorded this, so we will put the recording up on YouTube and on our website if anyone missed some or want to send it to anybody else, and we'll also send out the slides. And if there's any other stuff that you think it's worth us sending out, Joe, feel free to send on to me and I'll get out to everybody. But yeah, brilliant. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you, Angie. Thanks.
Thank you.